Okay. Time for a video review. Wait a minute. Look at... I want to spam hat. Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to another Irish Porygon video, another episode of everyone's favorite series, First Impressions. It's the show where we review stuff. Yeah, it's not the day after it comes out anymore, it's just the first time after I listen to it, basically. Welcome to another video. I'm your host Gavin, per the usual, and today, what are we reviewing? We are reviewing Bando Stone in the New World, which is a new album by the great Bambino.
Super Mario RPG, Sonic...
What's that? What's up? Oh, it's Childish Gambino. Oh. Okay, thank you. Which is a new album by Impish Pacino, who is of course no stranger to the entertainment industry, being around for quite a while now, since his breakthrough role as an actor, interestingly, in Community, starting in 2009. But he's since become a prolific actor, prolific artist, well-acclaimed, also a comedian. He does just about everything. He's making a movie now, he's doing all these different things. But I've always felt that typecast Latino has been an artist who, I don't know, has kind of never really reached that full potential that I think he is capable of reaching as a musical artist. I feel like he just had growing pains the whole way through, starting with his debut album Camp, which had serious growing pains. Not a horrific debut by any means, but just showing that there are some things he had to work through to become the artist that I thought he could. Because The Internet was a decent album, people seem to really like that one. I think it's just kind of alright, but definitely made a lot of improvements there, considerable and significant upgrades since the last album. And then after that, of course, he puts out Awaken, My Love, which is a pretty dang phenomenal album. It's up there with the Nines area. It's pretty great. I mean, when you spawn singles such as Redbone and Me and Your Mama, I mean, not Me and Your Mama, that's like a Your Mom joke, Me and My Mama. Like, anything that spawns a single such as that is going to be looked at as a great album for years to come. And being released, 8 years ago now? It's still looked at as a great album, and rightfully so, it is great. Just because some of the deep cuts are pretty great as well, such as Zombies, which is one of my favorite tracks off of that album. On his next project, which was called At a Vista, and was originally published earlier as, I think, 31520, or some sort of series of numbers like that, it kind of showed a regression, kind of slipping back into that, like, untapped potential, where, like, come on, we all know he can do better than that. But Awaken My Love to this day is still the point at which Wild Style's Small Pino really reached his potential. Overall, his discography has had highlights, but I always kind of felt like there is more to be desired with most of his work. And so going into this, I was curious, would we kind of see the camps because the internet's out of him, or would we get another Awaken My Love? And I was curious to see what we would get. Looking at this album's cover, of course, it's much different of an aesthetic than anything he's put out before. And that's mostly because this isn't a standalone project. This is the soundtrack to a movie upcoming with the same name, Bando Stone in the New World. And so we gotta have to take that in mind, that this is music that is designed to be played during some sort of movie. Keeping in mind that it is a soundtrack album, I was going into it kind of wondering what I was going to expect and not really knowing, so I was excited to see what I would find. Going into this, I was also interested to see that most people on the internet had given this somewhere in the 7s or 8s ranges as far as rankings went, signifying to me that this could be pretty good. What you kind of find when you look at this album is you find a very large variety of different tracks and different styles and different influences that you're sort of seeing. You have some Afrobeat influences, you have some orchestral influences, you have some jazz influence, R&B, you have all sorts of different types of things, which is what Childish Gambino is kind of known for. I mean, Awaken My Love was so loved because it was very fresh and new, and you had sort of choral sections, you had all these different things added on this bass line of kind of R&B soul, but very much willing to break the barriers and cross lines and color outside of the lines. Which is why people loved it so much, because it felt raw yet polished at the same time. But on this album, you can certainly see that he's stays true to what he did there, which is coloring outside the lines, going and exploring new dimensions. And so it's hard to really place this in a genre. I mean, the closest thing I would put in it is like experimental soul, is what I would kind of say, but that doesn't really quite fill the gaps there. But overall, it's a very interesting album experience. There are several tracks here that I would recommend. It's an interesting listen for sure, and I can't really quite sum it up without breaking into the track list, so let's get right into it. Track number 1 is the worst thing to type out. You cannot just write hearts were meant to fly down on a piece of paper. No, you have to put in all these symbols and stuff, which, by the way, that is my least favorite way to title your song ever. If you want to make me mad, put symbols in it. That's such a nitpick, and I'm not judging my opinion on this song to any degree on what symbols are used in the title, but it's just very annoying to type and makes me a whiny first world problem boy. Anyways, the first track didn't impress me particularly well. I give it a 4. This track definitely reminds you immediately that you're listening to a movie soundtrack, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's not part of why I gave it that 4 rating. But right off the bat, you're hit with that dialogue, you're hit with what sounds like it could be audio pulled right from the film. But anyways, as you're watching this, Big Bambino reminds us of that right away. Kind of how you're listening to a soundtrack album, that's kind of what's going on. And again, it's not something that takes away from the value of the track, just something to note. As for the track, I enjoyed the soundscape. I thought that the transition from these nice synths into this kind of more jarring, sawtooth-y sound was very interesting, but I gotta admit, a bit cliche. There are a lot of songs nowadays that start with this nice, soothing melody and go right into a rah, rah, rah sort of feeling. There's no other adjective to use other than rah, rah, rah. I didn't really feel strongly about the vocals, however. Amare, who has vocals on this track, has some pretty decent sections and does a pretty fine bang-up job, but I really did not enjoy the Wild-like Filipino sections, which is kind of a problem when you're the artist actually doing this. It seems to me that this is sort of just your average, nobody believed in me when I got started, but now I'm all more famous than them song. Everyone in this sort of style of music has made one of these tracks at some point. In recent memory, I can think of one already, is the opening to The Death of Slim Shady, being that sort of, nobody believes in me, everyone's making fun of me, all these haters, blah, 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 blah. And it's just kind of an archetype of music that I'm tired of by now, just because everyone's done it and no one really does it uniquely. It's just kind of like, heavy beat, I'm so mad at haters, blah, blah. And this one is kind of no different. I didn't really find it to be that engaging. And it's difficult to listen to people whine about their haters when they have millions of loyal fans. This is sort of just a track that we've seen on Nearly Artist, and it's been better done by other people before. And it's been done in 5,000 other places, so I don't really care to see this archetype of track anymore. And while I did feel it to be overly cliche and dramatic, I will give it a bonus point just because it sampled Undertale. There was no reason for it to sample Undertale, but for some reason the Azrael voice font was used in the middle of the song randomly. It goes like that sound he makes. It doesn't make any sense why it's here, but I thought it was really funny and made me go, what is it? What is it? And for that reason, I thought that was pretty funny. Track number 2 is much better for me. Lithonia, I gave a 9. I enjoyed this track a lot. I was very surprised, honestly, at how much I like this song, because it's been a TikTok sound which has been all over the internet for a very long time now. Sort of that nobody gives a frick. You thought I was gonna say it? Fuck you. And so because of that TikTok sound, I kind of wrote it off, which was kind of a big mistake on me. I have a tendency to write off TikTok songs when sometimes they can be pretty good. However, this song transitioning into a very interesting, punky sort of vibe, sort of, I guess, indie punk sort of thing, was very interesting to me. I didn't really expect an alt-rock track, and yet here we are. Because it starts out with a kind of mellow keys vibe, then it really dives into this alt-rock section, which I dig a lot. When I first heard the chorus to this song online, I thought that it was just kind of gonna be memey, kind of corny, overly blown, trying to be deep but not really, but I was honestly kind of surprised, just because it builds a very simple foundation and then sits on that foundation, and it really works. There's good melodic hooks, the song has a really nice chord to it, a very nice drive, and is very memorable, just because of those great hooks, vocally and instrumentally. My main complaint keeping this from being a 10, the only thing is really its production overall. I just felt that there were a couple tweaks that could have been made with the overall sound mixing, soundscape sort of thing. I felt that the guitars just could have been a little bit sharper. They kind of have this more Smashing Pumpkins sort of warm and expansive sound to them, where I feel like it did the job just fine, but it would have been it just would have added so much more edge if it had a little bit more sharpness, a little bit more bite to the guitar tone. rather than this sort of warmer, expansive tone that was used. I also didn't like the way the vocals were mixed right when they came in. Just that first 5-10 seconds, they were just not mixed in great. Too loud and too biting. I felt like they could have taken another look at how those vocals were being perceived. Those are only two very minor complaints that I have on an otherwise pretty dang awesome track. Track number 3 is Survive, which I gave an 8. First off, just want to say I love the bass line. Being a bassist myself, it was pretty phenomenal. Just listening to this very smooth, very particular bass line, just kind of take the groove and let it chill. This is a much more experimental sound than the songs we've heard previously, but a very different sound than Lithonia. It's unique and exciting, not quite as impactful as Lithonia, as the lyrics don't really sit as well as a foundation on this track. And I will also say, the sax outro was a really nice touch. I am a sucker for sax outros, and this one was just great. It was a great, like, bebop, sort of very smooth jazz outro, which was unexpected, but not in a bad way at all. Track number 4 was Steps Beach. I gave it a 6. It's a cute little guitar song. It's nothing phenomenal, and appears to be a message from Vapid Peppercino to a loved one and his family, maybe. It doesn't really give any romantic vibes. I kind of got the vibe that it was sort of a familial song, which is cool to hear nowadays in a world where it seems like a lot of family values are kind of cast aside in a lot of modern music. It was good to hear that for a change, some positive familial relations in a popular song. It's pretty personal, and well written too. It's just not anything particularly special. It's just kind of another guitar song. The only thing that bumped it from a 5 to a 6 was that I like the subject matter. And now, Talk My Shit. This is the 5th song on the track. I gave it a 0. This thing stinks. Massive misstep. Yeah, this track isn't good. Literally every archetype that I hate about songs is in this song. Pretty much everything is there. Does it have high-pitched, stupid voice filters? Yes, it does. Does it have saying a word in a bored tone, just a single word in a bored tone after almost every line in the verses? Yes, it does. For instance, 2 Chainz on Me, I'm different. Damn. I could fuck up a check and go missing. Money. Like, really? Really, I hate that archetype. Does it have corny, terrible bars? Yes, it does. For instance, listen to this line. She said, "Baby, what's a yacht?" And I said it's a type of boat. Wow, you did it. Line of the year right there. This song just has it all that I hate. Most of this song I just kind of wanted to blow my brains out through, which is not really what you want when you're listening to a song. As it's just too much garbage on top of each other, and I can't dig that. And the flow on the bars is just very stagnant and stiff. There's not much motion and flow just in the bars. It's delivered very stagnantly. And I did not like that at all. It's just not very fun to listen to. And so for those reasons, I didn't really find anything positive about it. I did not like this track. Also, go take a look at the Genius lyrics for this song. The little annotations, like the community annotations where you can kind of highlight a phrase and have it say something on the side, are really hilarious. I had a really good time reading them. Thankfully, Got to Be is a bit better. I gave it a 6. It's kind of just Death Grips, but worse, and mixed with a little bit of Charlie XCX. The track could be a lot better, but we've seen better club-esque, club-adjacent, dance-esque sort of music earlier this year. Most of it on Brat. There's nothing particularly bad, I guess, about this track. We've just seen it the same thing done a lot better on other tracks, and very recently. So this one was just really overshadowed by its competitors. For that reason, I was dull in my reception of this. But there is nothing wrong with it. It's fine. It's passable. It's just blown way out of the water by other tracks. Real Love is a 7. I like Real Love. Is it corny? Sure. But I think it's trying to be. This track is simple and knows it. Because at the end of the day, it's a expression of what it's like to feel real love. And at the end of the day, real love is very corny to people that are not in it currently. Like if you're watching a couple things, you think, oh, that's corny, that's weird, I don't like that. But if you're in it, like, it's the best feeling ever. And this song really encapsulates that. Like, from an outside perspective, it's a very corny song. But if you're feeling it, if you're feeling the song, it's like, yeah, this is pretty fun. Is it cliche? Sure, it's cliche, but, like, it's trying to be. It knows what its subject matter is and fills that up accurately. It's nothing masterful or grand or introspective. It's just fun, and that's okay sometimes. And you can have a good, fun song without needing it to be the biggest masterpiece in the world. And I just respect it a lot, especially in a world which is more and more pretentious. I mean, look at me. I'm doing album reviews on YouTube. Isn't that pretentious enough? But I just respect it a lot, especially in today's world. Track number 8 is called In the Night, featuring Georgia Smith and Amare again. I give it a 5. I just didn't get anything special out of this song. It's a vaguely interesting story about someone who is not happy with the relationship, and the protagonist is saying like, oh, I can see you're not happy with your relationship, come with me. And then the subject is kind of like, okay, maybe I will. And it's just kind of a interesting situation to make a song about. I just feel like that theme could have been leaned into a little bit more. The song just kind of feels like filler. It doesn't really feel like it does anything special or anything to progress the sound of the album. It just kind of sits there. I just wanted this song to take some risks. Childish Gambino is known for taking risks. Awaken My Love, there's all sorts of different things thrown in there. Different risks, different things that could have not worked out and been seen as weird, but everyone loved it. And I didn't see any risks on this track at all, and I wanted to see more. Unfortunately, this is a feeling I have a lot on a lot of Sour Cream Burritos tracks, just because he falls short of the goal so often. It just feels safe and very average. Also, Amare is pitched up again for no reason at all. I don't know why, just kind of, couldn't you just let her vocals speak for themselves? I guess not. But thankfully, she is not on this track for very long. She has like 20 seconds of bars, and it's okay. Overall, I tolerated it, just very mid. As we head on to track 9, we get into Yoshinoya, which I gave a 7. It was pretty good. This song, legitimately, I thought it was a Drake diss at first. And I was listening to the lyrics and the things he was talking about, because clearly it's a diss on somebody. But I was listening to it and being like, is this about Drake? Are we back on the Kendrick train again? Looking into it, I don't think it is. It could be, but I don't think it is. It's just a funny little detail. But this song is pretty good. Wiley Aquilino is back to his normal, fun flow, which is a contrast to earlier in the album where I said it had gotten a bit stale. There's also some good spicy bars on this track, which I liked. There's some bars that kind of got some teeth to them. It was really interesting and piqued my interest across this song. The transitions between the two parts of the song is pretty clean too, cleaner than on the opening track. Just being a more interesting, a less cliche sort of transition, which I enjoyed more. Overall, the track drags on a little bit and doesn't have too much change-ups after that first one, which I would have liked to seen a little bit of variation past that first change-up. And it drags on a little bit because of that, but overall, it's a nice track. Track 10 is Can You Feel Me, featuring Legend, which is his son. But this track feels like Guile Street Fighter Reno's love letter to his son, and sort of the joys of fatherhood. It's cute, sure, and there's some nice, like, motifs of the alphabet motif being a unique one. And the memorable choral alphabet in the back is, of course, what makes this track pretty memorable. But like so much of Lipstick Zamboni's catalog, I wish there was more. Musically, the song is fine, but lyrically it's so surface level. On a topic like this, where it's very personal, very real, based on real people, and clearly directed at someone for them specifically to listen to, I wish it just had a little more bite. I wish it got more personal. And it really doesn't. It stays surface level, and doesn't dive into the nitty-gritty of how he is feeling at this time. And I just really wish it did. It just left me feeling a little bit let down. For such an intimate topic, it just doesn't have enough. Fortunately, we are getting to track 11, which is my favorite track on this album. It is No Excuses, featuring Ludwig Göransson. I gave it a 10! That's right, I love this track so much. This track is just an amalgamation of everything. There's choral influences, there's orchestral influences, there's some Michael Jackson kind of esque stuff mixed in there. There's a good amount of like Afrobeat and cultural music which he's exploring, which is very neat. I love cultural music, and seeing it in a Western setting is very unique and raw and real. There's even a touch of jazz, and honestly, I caught a little bit of a whiff of like 70s revival, sort of like Silk Sonic-esque sort of stuff, which I love Silk Sonic. So this is just all the things I love tied up in a bow and not done sloppily. This track is certainly a slow burn. You kind of have to listen to for about 2 minutes before the first like wow moment happens, but that's nothing wrong with that. Slow burns can be great. Some of the best tracks in history are slow burns. Comfortably Numb, Freebird, stuff like that. The layered solos of like drums, synth, saxes, different things, it's just so invigorating, and you wonder what is around the corner. The addition of Ludwig Göransson to this track is great, as he just brings his own as well, bringing these lovely low string sections, but also his set of eclectic woodwinds, which he is known for. You never really hear woodwinds too often in modern music nowadays, which is very nice to see. A very unique twist, but not done in a stupid way, done in a very tasteful way. Also, another genius move was bringing on the producer Michael Uzaruru, which I don't think I said that right, forgive me. Because he just brings the knowledge and the history within Afrobeat, because he has worked on some Afrobeat tracks before, and comes from a family where he has said that is an important part of his familial culture, so bringing in someone with that sort of background was just a genius move, which really let this sort of Afrobeat-esque sections really slide really well. But all three artists bring their all, and not only overshine each other, but mesh together perfectly to create a very nice, full, long track. And may I just say, yes, the bass line is great too. Love the bass line on this track. Unfortunately, it doesn't kick in until the 5-minute mark, but it's what the track needed, and it is a great bass line. I love this track a lot. Track number 12 is Crusin featuring Yeet. I gave it an 8. I liked it quite a bit, which I did not expect to be honest, because I'm not a big fan of Yeet's work. This song took a while to grow on me, sure, but did really get there eventually. I was kind of worried that the Yeet feature would bring the track down in a way. But it was alright. The main draw of this song is that it builds really well. It builds from kind of nothing and eventually swells into this very full-sounding track. There's a lot of really nice swells, really nice flourishes, like I was saying, which were a nice addition to this track. It's the same production team from the last track, being Ludwig Göransson and Michael, I can't say his last name, which was a really smart decision, being that these are vaguely similar tracks. The first verse didn't really impress me at all. I didn't really enjoy the first verse, but once I got past that, it was pretty great. Track number 13, however, was not very good. I gave it a 3. I felt like the song was just kind of nothing. I didn't get anything out of it, emotionally, musically, really anything. It just kind of sits there not doing much, which is not very good. Typically, if I'm not feeling it lyrically, or if I'm not feeling it instrumentally, I'll give it a 5, but I wasn't feeling it either way, so I gave it a 3. The vocals are just too over-processed to be able to understand, and even if they were understandable, you wouldn't be able to really resonate with them just because of how overly processed they are, just to an insane degree. And the overall song concept is just repetitive. There's not much variation throughout the song, not many aha moments at all. And it didn't really feel like anything to me. Track 14, Running Around, I gave a 7. It's the second alt-rock track of this album, and I like alt-rock. And I liked the first alt-rock track on this album, giving it a 9. This one hits, but not quite as well as the first. This track feels almost 21 Pilots in its style, kind of reminding me of Clancy from earlier this year. It's simple, and it's not trying to do anything crazy, and I respect it a lot. It's not as good as Lithonia, like I said, but it gets the job done. It's a fine song, and does pretty well. And it's just a peppy little kind of pop rock track, or pop alt rock track, which gets me kind of bouncing in my seat, which is nice. Track 15, Dadvocate, I gave a 5. It was kind of mid. Dadvocate is just kind of a little story about the pressures of being a good father, which we heard a couple times on this track, and is a subject matter which I typically enjoy hearing about. And it serves as a neat little meta piece about kind of societal pressures and things like that. But like some of the other emotion-centric track on this album, I just wish it would be more personal. He kind of has these like big blanket statements about what things are like, and sort of these kind of everyman type thing, but it doesn't get personal enough to do any real damage. Like the track where he had his song Legend featured, I just wanted more out of it. I wanted more bite. It just feels very toothless, and like it's trying to attack this issue, this personal battle, but just without really getting deep at all, which is what you want on those types of tracks. If you're singing about something personal, you want it to be personal, and it's just not. Instrumentally, it's laid back, it's chill, it's sort of nice, and is a easy listen, but it's not much more than that. An easy listen is not enough to justify a great score, because I just wish it was something a little bolder for something that tackles this sort of subject matter. Track 16, Happy Survival, I gave a 7. It was pretty enjoyable. It's a fun, chill song featuring Karangbin, which is a band kind of somewhere floating in the easy listening genre. They just put out an album of their own, actually, called Alla Sala, which was alright. This track is just kind of a neat little standalone at the end of the album. It doesn't really fit into the context of the album, but it's fine. As a standalone, I like it as a 7. It's very passive, and that's fine because Karangabin's style is very passive, so they're clearly being allowed to just embody their own style and chill. Featuring some light sort of calypso inspiration, it's a nice little vibe that we haven't really heard of. It's sort of just chill elevator music, but not in a super bad way. It's pretty fun. The thing that really stands out is the really nice guitar work. The guitar work is always great, and of course those warm bass tones that Karangabin has kind of become known for is very nice. nice. I enjoyed the sort of cohesion of those two elements. I enjoyed it, but it's nothing crazy or phenomenal, though. Track number 17 is called A Place Where Love Goes. This is the ending to this album. I gave it a 6. It's okay, it just doesn't strike me as the grand finale, which I feel like Sandwich Lumpino was kind of fishing for. It's just kind of an okay dance club sort of track, but that doesn't strike me as phenomenal or even as something really that special. It's good, it gets you moving, and it has a memorable chorus, but it lacks those key elements that make it super memorable. But it lacks the scale that I feel like other tracks on this album had, which this track really needed to meet to be able to stand out as a grand finale. I feel like for this one to just fit as the last song on the record, it really needs to bring something epic, something grand, something that feels like a finale, and something that doesn't feel like some random track that would have belonged around track 12. The other great tracks on this album just have something that this track doesn't have, and for that reason it's pretty mid. So to summarize, I'm probably getting a lot of flack for this right now, because a lot of people like this album a lot on the internet and stuff, but I just couldn't really get into it that much. But I'll start off with some good stuff. It has highlights. It has really big, grand highlights. Lithonia, No Excuses are these great, phenomenal tracks which really stand out, and I think I will be listening to them for a while. And they really recall the successes of Awaken My Love with that kind of varied, raw soundscapes, very new, experimental, which made people like that album so much. I think the main problem with this album is that there just needs to be a path that was chosen. There's all sorts of different routes explored on this album, but none to an insane degree, which just makes me feeling a little bit spread thin after listening to this. Because the main problem is that there's good tracks, but a lot of these tracks are overshadowed in their own genres by other tracks in recent memory. Some of the pop rock tracks are overshadowed by 21 Pilots. Some of the electronic tracks are overshadowed by Charlie XCX. There's just other things that do the same thing better. And I feel like he just really should have picked one path and rolled with it and tried to make a masterpiece there. Specifically with that sort of orchestral, choral, almost rock sort of feeling, because I don't feel like anyone's really covering that ground right now. Like, no one's covering the ground No Excuses was on. And he's shown that he can do that kind of genre before with Me and Your Mama on Awaken My Love, but he just doesn't follow those paths that I think need to be followed, and I just feel very spread thin after listening to this album. Continuing on that, there's just a serious lack of cohesiveness. Because listen, I love my albums to have diversity. I absolutely adore when there is a diverse range of concepts explored on an album. And this has that, sure. But this album is just so spread out that it lacks central themes. I am lacking any sort of central theme going throughout it. I am lacking any sort of messaging in any of these tracks. I am lacking some sort of grounded center or gravitational center to this album. Another major problem is this is a soundtrack album. There should be a clear story. I feel like we need to see the evolution of a character. We need to see, maybe even not a character, maybe this just the exploration of a concept from multiple perspectives in an order that makes sense. But there's no sense of story or weight to this album, no sense of rising tension. It just feels like a bunch of singles put in a compilation, which is not what I want from a studio album, especially from an artist of this magnitude. But another major gripe I have with this is the transitions. There's big swells at the ends of tracks that feel like they should lead into something epic in the next track, or sort of move in that direction on the next track, and they just don't. They cut off and go nowhere. As a listening experience, this is a difficult album to listen to just because of the amounts of cuts, drops, and disappointments between tracks. I feel like there could have been more buttery transitions, which would really, really help this album fuse together and bump it up several notches. And like I said, there are some phenomenal tracks on this record, but there's just a serious lack of focus in the way this album is overall carried out. Being a soundtrack album, the dialogue bits and pieces here and there are neat, but I just feel like they're not consistent, they're not telling a story, they're just dialogue pieces that exist for some reason, just so disconnected from the songs that I can't tell what's going on. I don't know what the point in those dialogue bits are, other than to say, hey, you're listening to a soundtrack, you gotta remember that, you gotta remember it's a soundtrack, and that's not really what I want. I want the songs to kind of tie into a story. It doesn't have to be the story from the movie, just a story. The dialogue bits are just there for no reason, overall, despite its highlights, this is a rather disappointing record. I really thought that this release could have a chance to rival Awaken My Love, but it simply doesn't. The highlights help it a lot, sure, but not enough to dig it out of this hole that it's in. Which is why I'm feeling a high 5 on this album, not the hand gesture in which you slap someone else's hand, the score of a high end of a 5. And again, my sincerest apologies to Cornish Burrito. I'm sorry for digging into your album so hard. But hey, a 5 is mid. It could have been a lot worse. Anyways, I want to thank you for watching this video. Thank you so much. If you want to vote on what album I review next week, follow my Instagram, where you can see different votes and polls every week. If you want to watch more videos, you can also hit subscribe, because then you don't get to forget about anything coming up. Don't forget, or else I'll kill you. No, I won't. That's a threat. But seriously, guys, thanks for watching. Catch you in the next one. See ya.